The famous special relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom seems to be on the rocks.
That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
They have a choice. You can say yes, or you can say no, and we will remember.
US President Donald Trump has imposed tariffs of 10% on almost all British goods. He's threatened more tariffs of up to another 25% on Britain and other countries simply for sticking up for Greenland. And he's caused huge upset in Britain by disparaging the role of NATO troops in Afghanistan. So what does it all mean for our famous special relationship?
We have certainly a most encouraging example here of what can be achieved by British and Americans working together, heart and hand. In fact, one might almost feel that if they could keep it up, there is hardly anything they could not do, either in the field of war or in the not less tangled problem of peace.
How did we get here? The term special relationship was first coined by British Prime Minister Winston Churchill during World War II, based on the close wartime alliance. Under Churchill and President Franklin Roosevelt, Britain and America worked together to begin to establish the foundations of the post-war rules-based order. Peaks in this relationship continued over the decades, in particular between Prime Minister Macmillan and President JFK, with British intelligence support during the Cuban Missile Crisis, an American commitment to the UK's nuclear deterrent, between Prime Minister Thatcher and President Reagan, who worked together closely during the Cold War and also shared intelligence during the Falklands conflict. And then, of course, between Prime Minister Blair and Presidents Clinton and later Bush, firstly working on peace in Northern Ireland, and then the extremely close partnership in the war on terror. But there have been low points too. President Eisenhower threatened to practically bankrupt Britain over the Suez Crisis in 1956, and Labour Prime Minister Harold Wilson steadfastly refused President Lyndon Johnson's requests for British troops to help in Vietnam. Keir Starmer's criticism and Trump's behaviour seem to be threatening another low point in this special relationship. Trump's military raid to capture President Maduro has really tested British support for American ambitions in South America, while Trump's claims over Canada becoming the 51st state are a direct challenge to the largest Commonwealth realm, which shares King Charles III as head of state. Britain also strongly defends Danish sovereignty in Greenland. There's deep unease over how Trump sees Russia's role in Europe and his apparent insistence that Ukraine needs to give up territory to Russia in order to end the war.
Don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
We're in charge.
Trump now seems to be threatening the whole world order, firstly with his tariffs that he's imposed on just about every country that trades with America, and then with his recent comments about NATO. He started off by suggesting that
We've never needed them.
when it's the only country that's called upon NATO troops to help it out. He then made those terrible comments that the UK and other allies,
And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines.
It was simply not true. Starmer and others, including Mark Rutte, the NATO General Secretary, and made it very clear to Trump that European members of NATO would come to the support of the US, just as they did in Afghanistan. I thought it was very telling that Trump did backtrack, at least as far as the British contribution was concerned, saying that the British military had tremendous heart and soul and was second to none and among the greatest of all warriors. In fact, that was a sign of the special relationship in action, because we know that messages were communicated to the White House, not just from Downing Street, but also, we think, from Buckingham Palace. Can the UK go it alone? Should it be looking to a Brexit of the US, a Brexitus? The US is an indispensable partner in NATO, and the UK relies very heavily on America to equip its nuclear deterrent and for other advanced defense and security technology. It would require massive extra spending to replace the US defense commitment. Economically, the UK is the biggest single direct investor nation in the US. American companies are employers in every city and every large town in Britain, so it's not entirely a one-way street. Britain has been called America's most reliable fixed aircraft carrier because of its role in stationing US military and security systems across the Atlantic. This suggests to me that the special relationship will endure. It's gone through bumps in the road before. Trump is making it hard for many Brits to love America with his mercurial actions, but the many decades of this close relationship and the very deep bonds cannot be erased overnight. Ironically, this year's 250th anniversary celebrations of American independence from Britain will be a reminder of the closeness of the relationship between the two nations, I think, and the fact that Starmer hit back at Trump's NATO insult and that led Trump to praise British troops did suggest that there's still some special level of influence that other countries don't have. But like any relationship, it needs to be worked at, and the way President Biden kept on Trump's first-term tariffs on steel and aluminium does suggest to me that as years go by, the historic ties of culture and language that bind Britain and the US will be increasingly tested.